What's up guys, it's Ollie from History Profiles, and today's video will be about Bjorn Petterson, otherwise known as Axlar-Bjorn. He is known today as the only Icelandic serial killer who terrorized travellers, and he had a certain darkness about him which was apparent from before his birth. But how could this have happened? Let's get into the video and find out. Bjorn was born in 1555, and he was the youngest of 3 children born to an Icelandic farmer couple. He resided at Oxlar in the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, which is known for its magnificent beauty. According to legend, when Bjorn's mother fell pregnant with him, she had very strange cravings for human blood. Her thirst for blood was said to be so bad that her loving husband let her drink his own blood to quench her thirst. After she had drank her husband's blood, she had nightmares so terrible that they made her shiver every time she thought about them. But she had to tell someone. She confessed these dreams to one of her friends, but the response from her was unsettling. Her friend would say that she feared that the child she was carrying would be some kind of monster. Eventually, Bjorn was born, and as he grew up, he proved to be an angry boy with a temper, and he was completely uncontrollable. He was a strong young man, and a friend of his father's, Ollie the Rich, gave him a job at his farm, and he would also live there for a time. With the old gods of Bjorn's forefathers gone, everyone had converted to Christianity, but Bjorn found Mass to be very boring, and instead of going, he would sleep through it. However, while he slept, he had a very strange dream. In this particular dream, a stranger came to him with a plate of meat and offered him some. Bjorn took the meat and realized it was quite exquisite and like nothing he had ever tasted before. Before he knew it, he had 19 pieces and began to feel ill. Then, bizarrely, the man told him that he should climb to the top of a mountain that was nearby in order to find an object that would change his life forever. The 19 pieces of meat would foreshadow how many people he would later kill. Bjorn took heed of this dream and thought it must have been fate or destiny. So he climbed the mountain, and at the very top he found an axe which entranced him. He would stare at the axe and see it shining as it reflected off the sun. He had heard great tales of his ancestors and how the Vikings of old had used axes to terrify and kill their opponents. Shortly after he discovered the axe, another boy working at the farm disappeared one day without a trace. Bjorn later confessed that he killed the boy with his new axe by hacking him to death, and then he buried him in a heap of dung. Due to Ollie being a friend of his father, he didn't report the death to the authorities, and Bjorn would go on to adulthood as a free man. He had killed his first person at just 15 years of age. Some years later, Ollie the Rich passed away due to natural causes and left his farm to his son, Gudmundur. Bjorn and Gudmundur had basically grown up and worked together and were fierce friends. Gudmundur had inherited a lot of land from his father, and he gifted his farm at Oxlar to Bjorn, which was one of the most beautiful and rich farmlands in the whole region. Bjorn would also marry a woman named Bordis and would move to the farm at Oxlar. Even though Bjorn was surrounded by such beauty, he was always in a foul mood and was ready to snap at any moment. According to legend, he had a certain bloodlust, and it was very hard to shake off. His moods varied, and in one story, he approached a group of men enjoying the sun and said, "These are dark days, my brothers." This reflects what kind of character Bjorn was. The beauty and location of Bjorn's farm would attract many travellers and people looking for work. These unfortunate souls would become Bjorn's prey. His mind was clouded with dark thoughts, and he couldn't help but murder some of the innocent travellers. He is also believed to have stolen valuables and horses from his victims, and he would soon be living a lavish life due to his farm and also due to his murderous ways. People that lived locally were beginning to suspect something, and Bjorn's wealth was increasing tremendously, and there was talk of something sinister and dark going on at his farm. But due to his friendship with Gudmundur, there was no investigation, and he was left undisturbed for decades. It is said that he would brutally murder men, women, or children who fell into his grasp, and after killing them with his axe, he would chop them up and sink their remains in a deep mere called the Axlar-Bjorn. According to legend, an old lady is said to have lulled an infant to sleep near the farm after overhearing two travellers who were considering staying there for the night. She said, "None should lodge at Bjorn who has fancy clothes. He takes them to Axlar-Bjorn. More blood flows down the road, and I rock your child until you doze." The surrounding community knew he was a monster, but could do nothing about it due to his influence and his nature. He was a terrifying man who people were afraid of. After a series of murders, it is said that one of his victims had escaped certain death and alerted the authorities. Sources say that the survivor was a mother of two who had barely escaped with her life as her children were being butchered. It is said that she watched them being killed with her own eyes before escaping terrified and broken. Eventually, authorities were forced to investigate due to the story of the grieving mother and due to his growing riches, which seemingly came from nowhere. He eventually confessed to 9 murders when pressed by the authorities. However, an investigation was conducted where they searched and would dig up parts of his farmland. During this search, far more than 9 bodies were found, and his lands were littered with human remains. Bjorn said, "I didn't kill them. I found them dead and just buried them there." This seemed far too convenient to the authorities, who didn't buy the story. He was then arrested for mass murder. It is unclear how many people he killed. However, it is said that he had 19 victims, the same amount as the pieces of meat that he ate in the dream all those years ago. Bjorn was sentenced to death in 1596 and had an extremely painful end. Firstly, his limbs were shattered and broken by a sledgehammer. They were then cut off with blades that were as hot as a furnace in order to keep him alive for as long as possible, and finally they took his head and tied his body parts to a stake. Before Bjorn's death, he named his wife as an accessory to his crimes, and due to this, she was forced to watch her husband be executed as a form of humiliation, and even had his genitals thrown at her. She was also pregnant at the time, which may have made it more distressing. Bjorn's mother's lust for blood may have foreshadowed her son's lust for blood while he was alive. For Bjorn would take many lives, for what reason we do not know, as he killed his first man when he was just a boy. Therefore, personal gain was just an added bonus. What do you think about Bjorn, and why did he have such a sinister nature? Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, and let me know if you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next week for another history profile. Bye.